Unlike the African American community, with notable exceptions, the Latino community is an incredibly diverse community.
We aren't all the same. Well, hello and welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time here, my name is Rita. I hope you all are doing well. So let's get right into it. So I have come across the term rest in power. Okay, so instead of rest in peace, you would say rest in power, at somebody's funeral or memorial service or what have you. Now, I had not heard of this term ever before in my life. On the surface, it sounds like some Black Power kind of thing, some, Marxist, whatever sort of mantra. So I even asked my mom about this because I thought, well, maybe this was before my time and now it's, reinventing itself. But she had no idea what this was either. And this is bringing me to the point that I kind of want to talk about today, which is there are, as you might expect, different types of people amongst Blacks. Black Americans. I'll just focus on Black Americans. There are different types of people. Okay. We aren't all the same. And I know this is going to come as a shock to some people who think we're a monolith.
What you all know, but most people don't know, unlike the African American community, with notable exceptions, the Latino community is an incredibly diverse community with incredibly different attitudes about different things.
But we are not all the same. Back to this rest in power thing. Before I get too far down the road, here is the definition from dictionary.com. A variation on rest in peace, rest in power is used, especially in Black and LGBTQ communities, to commemorate a person whose death is considered unjust or wrongful. In this way, rest in power is a call to continue the struggle for social justice and as a show of solidarity. Rest in power is also used to pay respect to a person, especially a person of color, who made a difference in the lives of minority communities. It is sometimes used to note the death of a person felt to have died too soon or senselessly, or a person who was influential or meaningful to people more generally. What's wrong with just saying rest in peace? Why does everything have to be so special? I know that was bad. I probably shouldn't have did that voice, right? But I am from the generation where we do not do PC very well. But why does it have to be this? Why does everything have to be cloaked in this Black power, Black supremacy stuff? Within Black folk, there are differences. There are those who see everything, and I mean everything, through the lens of the blackity black. Race, everything is about race and the white man and by the way, when Black people are like this, the white man, they typically don't make any distinctions between Asian, could be Arab, could be it doesn't Mexican, it does not matter. Typically, when you have these black supremacists, everybody is an enemy. Okay. So you have those types, and they say things like rest in power. This rest in power phrase is new. This thing from the dictionary.com is from March 4th, 2020. So this is a newer term. And you know how else you know it's new? Because it has LGBTQ communities in here, which was not a thing back in the day. This was not a thing. So this, and that's a separate video to talk about how the alphabet activists have kind of just latched that on to everything that they think is an oppressed group. So now they're oppressed, whatever. But this is a new term. So, like I said, there are the Black people who they see everything this way. But then there are other Black people who are just living life. And you don't hear that much, and you don't know that these Black people actually don't subscribe to any of this because we are just living life. We consider ourselves American. We are just living life. Why should we hyphenate? Nobody else hyphenates. Why should we have to hyphenate? This is just divisive. So the normal Black people are just living life, going to work, having kids, doing the things, enjoying state fairs, and interacting with people of different, cultural, ethnic backgrounds. Do not see people as, this race does this and this. No. There are simply just Black people living everyday lives, but you don't hear about them. What you hear about is the Blackity Blacks, the Black community, this, the rest in power, the power to the people. And those are, you know, what they say, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? I usually get idioms wrong all the time. So I had to think about it. But the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So we're always hearing from, even with our politicians, with neighborhood activism, it can never just be like, even if these neighborhood activists who are pushing back against the illegal thing and everything, they start off really well. They start talking about how it's damaging to communities, neighborhoods, but then they always end up in this place of the Blackity Black.
I'm black. Yo, I'm black and I'm black, y'all. And I'm black and black and I'm black, y'all.
Why can't it just be this thing is bad for Americans? Like, we just want something that is going to benefit us as Americans. Black people are not special. And I'm kind of tired, honestly, of being made to, I don't want to say being made to feel like, because I don't subscribe to this stuff. So, but I'm sick of hearing and seeing the Jesse Jacksons of our day and people in Congress talk about Black people, and this is historic, talk about being Black as if it's some kind of, you know, handicap. It's pretty ridiculous. And so I just, you know, why do we need a special day? Why do we need special words? Why do we need a special thing for Black communities? Like, why? There is nobody else begging for to be treated special. For people who want to be treated equal, Black folks sure don't act like it. All these special occasions and special this and special that, like what?
On Broadway, there were nights where tickets were only sold to people who identified as Black. Are you going to do that in the West End?
I'm so excited to, yeah.
You are?
Yeah. I mean, I think that one of the things that we have to remember is that people have to be radically invited into a space to know that they belong there.
I just don't understand this mindset. The problem plaguing the inner city, where a lot of Black people are, where they focus on Black community, the problems have nothing to do with being Black and have everything to do with the types of people we vote in office. But before we could even get there, before you could even get to politics, it has to, and I don't mean Republican or Democrat, it has to do with the values. I saw a video the other day of a woman losing her mind in a fast food restaurant because they got her order wrong or something. She had her young son there. He looked like he was about 10 years old, and she was freaking out, was having a complete meltdown in front of her child. And then when we see said child running around the streets with with some firearm or doing whatever, everybody's going to be wondering where the parents are. And then you look at somebody like this who's acting like this. So before you can even talk about politics, you have to talk about what is with the moral degradation in Black culture. What has happened that has created such a thing? There has been a breakdown before all of what we see today. Something has happened morally. And I honestly think that it started with the church somewhere back in the 70s with the invention of the televangelist and the prosperity and all these different things, the things that went on in the church that were wickedness. Because remember the church used to be where you went to church every Sunday. Maybe sometimes during the week, depending on your church. But you were in church every single week. And the silent generation, if you were blessed enough to be around and interact with the silent generation, that was the generation that would take you to church, that would make you sit up straight, that would make you take your arms off the table. They showed you manners and they had reverence for God. They told you about respect for your elders. Well, that generation is pretty much gone. And so now what we're left with is a generation of people, a generation who has no ideas about reverence. They have parents who take them into fast food joints and yell and throw things and tear the joint up, who are showing them how to act out, how to disrespect authority, how to disrespect their elders, that they are entitled to get something right. And if they, to get something, whatever they want. And if they don't get it, then they are well within their bounds to tear the joint up and throw a huge tantrum at 25 years old. This is what the young people are being taught. So something happened between the silent generation and today that broke down these communities. I talked about the church because I think that the lack of accountability that went on in a lot of Black churches. What do I mean by that? Well, we all know if you are Black and you went to a Black church, then you know that the choir director was almost certainly flaming, running across the stage and directing the choir. There was no correction, there was no correction issued. There were no accountability when the pastors were, having affairs with congregants. No accountability. Elder boards, a lot of times, not all churches, but let's face it, if you mention it, people will not go, oh, that's unbelievable, because it's common.
But the question is, why would she be a co-pastor and dress like that?
And I want to say I am divorced because I cheated.
So something happened where the accountability fell off and the reverence for God fell off. And now I think we are living with the repercussions of that, because when people went to church and there was some accountability and there was some reverence and you were taught respect, then the rest of the week, that trickled out into your daily life. That trickled out into your community. Well, we don't have that now. What we have by and large are a ton of churches who are doing all of that plus worse. Taking money from congregants and talking about the Black Lives Matter, all this crazy stuff. So I think that has had a detrimental, honestly, deadly effect on Black communities. And so this rest in power term and all of this other Black girl magic and all of these really weird things that honestly, I don't even know is happening until it's like it's a thing all over social media. Like a lot of these terms, I have no idea about any of these terms. And by the way, let me back up a little bit. I don't want to blame the church for everything. We are responsible for our own actions. All I'm saying is the church is supposed to sort of be like the conscience of the area that it's in. I feel like if that was still a thing, it would trickle out into the communities and you would see more of that. But instead, you're seeing more of something else trickle out into the communities. And that's what you see all over the TV. That's what you see all over TikTok and all these other social media platforms, is just Black people running amok, keeping racism alive, because you can't turn anything on without seeing Black folk doing who knows what all over the interwebs. But there are Black people who do not subscribe to this. You're not in the loop with all of the new terms and all of the new ways to be racist. You are not included in, you are not in the loop. So there are some of us out there who you don't hear about them as much because, as you know, what has happened, you know what's going on with social media and with the news and everything else. By and large, these types of people you just don't see on the news. They're just living life and doing their thing, and nobody, they are excluded from the conversations. Everybody is not the same. And when you see Black people, these young ones especially, there's something with this Gen Z generation where they are all the way like hardcore activists. I've heard of these public schools now in a lot of these very, very liberal cities taking kids on marches. And I mean, that is like, whoo! I could not, when I heard that some of these teachers are dragging their kids to to be activists in whatever, marching for BLM or whatever, I was flabbergasted. My teachers were part of the silent generation. So you still had, like I talked about, you still have that element of reverence, respect for authority. Like you pretty much stick to the script. A teacher would never back then, even if they were liberal, I don't think, drag their kids to protest. That is crazy without their parents knowing. I mean, that is just insane to me. I think everybody, when they see Black people now, they just think of all of the mayhem that they see, because the ones who are just normal are just normal. And this is not part of their like day to day. We interact with people from, like I said, from different races and different cultures, and we act pleasant because, let's face it, there is a look of the angry Black person. They all have that scowl. Most of us who are normal tend to try to not look like that. Anyway, until next time, I will chat with you soon. Ciao. God bless.